says the Patriots almost traded up to number 2 to select Baker Mayfield. I'm Jeff Biggs, NBC Sports Radio.
All right, how do you take that, sports fans? I'm quoting Tina Louise in the Stepford Wives. Right? What do you think about that, sports fan? Whenever you can, babes of yore always. Hey, I would tell you, what do you think about that? The agent of Baker. Oh, the Patriots wanted to trade up. Sure. I don't know. I've always found agents to be scum. And I hate to say that because, you look at labor and management. You don't want, a slave situation, that sort of thing. And I feel that I've worked in some of those instances in my career. Well, I have. So, many a time I would have liked to have had an agent or a union looking out after me. Then again, they can get a little more corrupted too. I don't have any insight here. Do you take the agent for Baker Mayfield at his word, considering that he does, as Dan Patrick said, have an agenda to make his client look real good? And, he's got endorsement deals he's got to figure out here. Hey, it's Baker Mayfield, Heisman Trophy winner, coming to resurrect one of the great historic franchises of the league and make Cleveland Believeland again. Of course you're going to, but what are you, going to say that? And then I guess the one thing is, would the Patriots come out and if it isn't true, say, oh, no, because that would show loyalty to Tom Brady that Bob Kraft has shown in recent times that Bill Belichick has not. I'm a big fan, by the way, of giving Tom Brady loyalty, even if Jimmy Garoppolo continues on the wonderful play that he had with San Francisco at the end of the last season. Garoppolo outscored Jacksonville. That's something that Ben Roethlisberger couldn't do. On the other hand, I still do sort of, okay, Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe I do think that there's a little bit more to a guy who won the Heisman Trophy, to a guy who, Sam Darnold, the Southern California quarterback, someone like that, than Jimmy Garoppolo and his, who's he back? He wasn't a first-round pick, that sort of thing. I'm Marky Billson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-City sports fans. The name of the program is Tri-City Sports Now. I own the Tri-Cities on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities, and you know why? Because best guess, and I'm the most outspoken sports talk show host, most outspoken member of the media around. Used to say hard-hitting opinion. Well, that's true, but today's show, we are going to have Josh Brown, our old friend from Tomahawk Take. No longer of Tomahawk Take. I'm sorry. He's of Nakahoma Nation, that podcast. He's been tweeting me every little tidbit about the Atlanta Braves that you can imagine. But we're now in the third month of baseball season and the first day of sunshine. And there is a big baseball story locally. Doug Jones retiring as the Tusculum baseball coach after 705 victories. He is still going to be in the athletic department. We'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later on. I'm also going to try to see if I can't get in touch with Jones sometime, either today, tomorrow, that sort of thing. But we'll be talking to him baseball and all this. I'll be talking stuff that I didn't get to yesterday about the hockey playoffs. I'll be getting some stuff about, pro football. Speaking of, are the Patriots and the Steelers, by the way, trying to grease the skids on their aging starting quarterback, something the New York Giants didn't do, by their selections in the NFL draft? Are the Patriots and Steelers trying to grease the skids for Tom Brady and Ben Roethlisberger with the selections they made? I'll get to that a little bit later on in the hour here. But I want to begin and talk to you. It's Election Day in East Tennessee. May Day is Election Day. Okay. And I'm reminded of when candidates running for statewide office in years gone by would often remark, Nashville thinks the state ends in Knoxville, but I don't, in order to appease Tri-Cities voters, to get them to think that, we've got, we're around here, we still care about you. We won't forget you there in Irwin, Johnson City, Greenville, wherever, Elizabethton. Now, it isn't used, that phrase isn't used as much as it used to be. And perhaps it has, but perhaps what that phrase was something of a indication that the area has an inferiority complex to some of the major metropolitan areas that surround the Tri-Cities, as well as make up Tennessee. This area is not as big as Knoxville. This area is not as glamorous as Nashville. This area, well, where is Memphis part of the state? Really? I don't think it, isn't it Arkansas? Really? Is Memphis, what is West Tennessee? That's not part of Tennessee. No. The 3 grand divisions still looming large, right? All right. But it did speak a little bit of that inferiority complex, and that I'm not gonna give you that, I'm here for you. I'm not gonna forget about you, thinking that politicians would not remember little old East Tennessee, a top 100 market. Now, the East Tennessee State Buccaneers may not like to admit it, but they have an inferiority complex, and it may be, indicative of what the area feels. Give you an example. A couple of years ago, 2016, Tennessee comes to Johnson City to play basketball, first time in 53 years. Big event, sellout at Freedom Hall. And ETSU's own flagship station had sports talk show hosts saying that East Tennessee State was little brother, which happens when East Tennessee State's flagship station hires people from the Tennessee pregame show and not the ETSU pregame show to do the hosting. Okay, but by the way, they didn't call ETSU little brother to UT in a way that suggests Eli Manning may someday win more Super Bowls than Peyton. And I bring this up today, not just because it's election day and I can remember old campaign slogans, but because former Richmond guard Khwan Fore chose to transfer to Tennessee instead of ETSU for his final season of college basketball. He's a grad transfer from Richmond. And maybe that's not surprising. I mean, SEC versus SoCon. I know we get that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, would you rather play for a team that advanced to the field of 32, lost to a Final Four participant there? It wasn't like they lost to a slouch. And they play in a multi-bid league. So if Tennessee wins 20 next year, they're probably going dancing. Do you want that? Or do you want to play in a one-bid league? And, I've been very outspoken to say that I think the Southern Conference has proven that they can play with the big boys. I mean, when Wofford beats North Carolina, when ETSU beats, although this year they lost Xavier after leading them by 22 points and coming up 2 points short, but when they, in previous years, beat Mississippi State and Georgia Tech, the Southern Conference has proven that they can, when UNCG, basically proves they can play with just about anybody, then maybe, it's time to start giving the mid-majors more respect and, I would argue, more at-large berths to the NCAA tournament. But here's the thing about Ford. He's a guard, and Tennessee returns all 3 guards from last year on the 2018-2019 Vol Cagers. Jordan Bowen, and Lamonte Turner. Meanwhile, over at ETSU, all the guards that started, and a lot of them that were reserves, are gone. The only starting guard that is returning for ETSU, Bo Hodges. Very good one. He'll be starting for another 3 years. So basically what this means is that Khwan Fore may have decided, I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but he's probably elected to sit on the bench at UT for his final season of college basketball rather than play on a team that will likely contend for an NCAA berth. Now the Vols may as well. I'm not saying that. I would imagine they would. Very young team that made it last year. Why wouldn't they? Good coach and Rick Barnes, who always makes the NCAA tournament, right? But at the same time, Fore is, looking at maybe being a sixth man at best. Now, maybe he's also looking at the fact that of the 3 guards that are returning for the Vols, none of them averaged 11 points a game. There's a 10.9er, but, Fore actually scored more points per game than any of the Big Orange's returning perimeter basketball players. Of course, he played on a 12-20 Richmond Spiders team. Atlantic 10, 8th best conference in college basketball. I think most people would say that. Multi-bid league. Why did Davidson join it? Well, they could only get in if they won the NCAA or the SoCon tournament. Proved that when Steph Curry couldn't make it with an at-large berth. But they made it last year. Admittedly, I think they won the A10 tournament, but even so. The question would go, if I've got all my guys, and I know that, the declarations, without signing for an agent, I doubt any of the Vols players are going to get drafted by the NBA. I could be wrong. But do you want to tinker with success? That's the question. By, replacing any of the 3 guards that fared so well for you last year, in a very surprising season when Tennessee finished second in the SEC, both in the tournament and, I guess, did they tie for the championship or did they finish? I'm trying to remember here. They didn't get the, Auburn was the team that got the number 1 seed in the SoCon tourney. But, Vols were picked next to last and they finished second place. Think about that. Now, here's the thing. No one's going to say getting Khwan Fore is going to be a recruiting coup for Rick Barnes. And that's a bad thing for the area because it's just naturally accepted in the Tri-Cities and most other places that a player would much rather play at Tennessee than ETSU. And that comes even after Steve Forbes, the ETSU men's basketball coach, plucked Isaiah Tisdale away from Indiana last week. Yeah. ETSU got a recruit that was considering Indiana. Why couldn't they get one that would consider Tennessee? For that matter, ETSU this baseball season has taken 2 out of 3 games from the Vols. But what's sad, and it goes back to the inferiority complex, is that hasn't resonated. And it'll be totally forgotten when Jeremy Pruitt records his first victory as Tennessee football coach to much fanfare and optimism, as only Big Orange fans are known to do, and they defeat ETSU in the first meeting on the gridiron between the 2 programs ever, September 8th of this year. That's going to happen, even with a bad Vols football team. The problem is, ETSU also has a bad football team. So who gives ETSU a chance? Right? It was North Dakota State. And the thing is, after a 4-8 year, if it was a top-tier FCS team, you might give that top-tier FCS team, North Dakota State at James Madison, a chance to win such a game. Rebuilding team, maybe coming off a poor loss to West Virginia. Not a lot of talent coming back. Defensive-minded coach who's probably going to be, playing a low-scoring game. Low-scoring means close and anything can happen. Yeah, you can see, North Dakota State's been feeding on the FBS teams in recent times, but it's not going to happen in Neyland Stadium September 8th. Now, I can say that perhaps Fore saw the recruiting class Forbes brought in and said he thought that it would be easier to play at Tennessee. I mean, you've got David Crockett High School's Patrick Good, the only 3-time Johnson City Press Player of the Year. He's coming back after starting his freshman year at Appalachian State. There'll be Tisdale, the guy who chose the Bucks over the Hoosiers. There'll be the player like Dre Boyd, good JUCO transfer. Carlos Curtis, Davian Williamson. They're coming in as true freshmen. And all those players, you got 5 players competing for 2 open spots in the backcourt. There's also that idea that Fore said, well, I'm from Alabama and I'd like to play closer to Alabama. But if that's the case, then why didn't he sign with UAB? I mean, come on. For that matter, why did he decide to play at the most anti-Alabama location on the face of the earth, Knoxville, Tennessee? Now, I realize that Fore, he's not going to be the difference between winning a national championship at Tennessee or ETSU. I mean, that's very unlikely. There's a chance he'll be a bench warmer. I get that. It's just that being able to lure him from Tennessee would have been a significant fight against the ETSU inferiority complex, which, let's face it, almost willingly places themselves in the back of a bus driven by the Tennessee Volunteers when it comes to attention and prestige in sports around here. And I mentioned it before, that when ETSU brought back football, who did Dr. Richard Sander want to make the football coach at ETSU? Phil Fulmer. And what did Phil Fulmer do? Oh, no, I won't do it. But, for more than $200,000 a year, I'll help you find a coach. And he found old coach. He found 11 and 22 coach. He found, Carl Torbush. How'd that work out? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, I'm in my 60s. I've got other interests. Coaching football, I don't know about that, But, hey, becoming the athletic director at UT for 4 more years, yeah, you can do that. Now, if that's not a slap in the face to ETSU, I don't know what is. And no one but me is saying that. Because they're all, because it's the inferiority complex. Well, why wouldn't you, if you could be the AD at UT, hold out for that? Not ever that he really, 5 years ago, who would have seen that coming? But that he would hold out for the program that scorned him rather than the program that wants to embrace him. To this day, Sander and Fulmer, they play golf together. Tri-City Sports Now, I'm Marky Billson, and I'll be coming back. I'll tell you a little bit more. Jason Witten, we're probably 24 hours or less away from knowing if he's going to play pro football or not. Tri-City Sports Now.
When you're looking for more,